Should I be on the bottom? Because Nikki.
Welcome to space, the final frontier. It is indeed the return of Jean-Luc Mon Capitaine, JL himself,
No.
Jean-Luc Picard, the return of Picard, the return of our Picard after show. And we are celebrating with style as we were about to start, pointing out that he does not belong there. Flobo Boyce now relegated to the center square. I'll take Flobo Boyce for the block. And of course, next to me is the one and only Nikki Bailey.
Hey.
And the one, the only, the embodiment of the phrase Earl Grey hot, Frank Picard, Frank Moran, Happy Go Jackie himself.
Yes.
Frank Moran 97. Welcome to the show. It is great to have you here. And I was reading just very quickly. I was looking at Twitter before we started, and the showrunner Terry Matalis, I don't know how you say it. I think it's Matalis. He was he did the 12 Monkeys show. He said that they're like 3 days away from wrapping on Picard. Not probably. He said forever. So season 3 is going to be it. And that makes me realize that there's only that means that there's potentially only like 19 more times in my life where I might talk to Frank Moran. So, but that's a lot of times. So,
that is.
Yeah.
I brought my own lens flare with me for
I love it. Yeah.
JJ. So
I know. Just shout out to JJ. So look, I want to get everybody's opinions. I just want to talk about how it is exciting to see Jean-Luc back on the vineyard. It's exciting to see number one, his dog, who got really the short shrift in season 1. But they made sure that they wanted to return all of our favorite characters: Robot Girl, blonde murder lady, doctor. What did I say her name should be, Nikki?
Yes, blonde murder doctor.
Yeah, blonde murder doctor. And of course, absolute candor boy, and Flobo's favorite, Raffi, the child.
She is my favorite. That's not even a joke.
I know. Well, so they made sure that they let us know how everybody was doing from last year. And honestly, after that first season, I was a little underwhelmed. I'm on record not being a huge fan of Q, but boy, season 1 could have used a lot of Q. So I think that that's sort of my overview. We'll go clockwise because although we are dealing with time travel, so maybe I should go reverse clockwise. Frank,
that's a meta joke.
I'm gonna have you start overall thoughts on the season 2 premiere of Star Trek Picard. Although I guess it's technically just Picard, but really it's Star Trek Picard.
For me, it was an improvement over season 1, but it also made me think, like, well, why did we do season 1? Because we could have just started like with this episode as the whole thing, and
yeah,
we would have been fine. I mean,
no, then the episode would have started. He's walking into the bar with Guinan, because we wouldn't have needed to catch up on all those other characters. You're not wrong. That actually would have been a great place to start.
So, but better than season 1, and I will get into. Yeah, that doesn't say that it doesn't have its failings, but it didn't have a high bar to clear.
Yeah. Flobito, your thoughts? And now obviously Picard was not your jam, as we might say. You're a Discovery boy through and through.
You though, because I'm like this in the streets. No, I thought Picard season 1 was completely dull, and I'm really gonna watch it when it's over and it's being able to be binged. Season 2, it's an improvement. So I think that really ticked me off about this. A lot of the major problems I had in season 1 still persist in season 2, but even though that's the case, I do feel you got one episode to right the ship, quite literally. So I am tentatively on board, although there's a lot of things in this episode I had umbrage with.
Ooh, I can't wait for the airing of grievances portion of the show, which will come very soon. Nikki, overall thoughts on the return of Mon Capitaine?
I was really just happy to see him. I'm not gonna lie. I still have enough nostalgia driving me forward in my love of Jean-Luc Picard to make up for all the shortcomings there are in the series. There's still just enough basic love for Sir Pat Stew that yeah, I loved it. I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. And it might just be that I loved it because it was back on the air. I can't even tell you that I loved it for its own merit. I think I just was happy to see Jean-Luc Picard again.
Let me very quickly ask Flobo, because you're the one person who might answer this in a way that's different than everyone else. Thursday, both Picard and the latest episode of Discovery both ended up on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Which one did you watch first?
Discovery. And it's not because I'm a Discovery person, but you're in the middle of a premise on one show, and you have another one.
Are you? I mean, they're in the middle. I feel like they're still at the very beginning.
Yeah. In hindsight, it was a mistake. No, but at the first, like, I'll watch that, and plus, when Strange New Worlds comes, it'll be the same thing. I would watch Picard before I watch the first episode.
That's fair. Okay. And Frank, should I assume that? Are you even watching Discovery, Frank?
Since we were all last together, that was as they went into the far future. So did my interest in the show. So maybe at some point.
So in 900 years, you might check it out.
Correct.
Okay.
Wow.
I haven't watched.
So you left the show in red, bro.
Oh, Craig Robinson's up. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning in England, or 4.
Yeah, I know. He's had to warp in for this reunion. Yeah, which reunion is more exciting, Craig? The four of us, or Sir Pat Stew and John Delancey?
You can't call him Sir Pat Stew after bragging on JL. You can't be like Sir Pat Stew.
I mean, Nikki said it, and Troy says way better than season 1. I mean, we only had one episode. And Dominicus Saxon says, I really hope they find a way to bring in Dr. Soren. I don't think anybody thinks that, but Dr. Is Dr. Song the father of Data and Lore, or do I have his name wrong? Noonien Song, yeah. Well, we know I assume people saw the preview of the season, so we may or may not be surprised to see Brent Spiner at some point. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about what we expect to be coming, but let's just talk about what we got in this episode. Dealing with sort of flashbacks to Jean-Luc's childhood. And Nikki, this is somewhat reminiscent. These aren't really overtones that I feel like we have before. Whatever happened, that he's trying to not remember or unfortunately unable to forget, it doesn't seem to be consistent with things that he's ever thought about or ways that he's spoken about his mother before. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It does seem like it is a story point. It's like in Back to the Future 2 when they decided that Marty freaks out if anybody calls him chicken. But there's like nothing to do with that in the first movie. They're just like, yeah, but we're going to need this in the third one. So do you feel like this is invented, or am I not remembering correctly? And maybe they're just expanding on something in the past.
I feel like this is the most personal inner look at Jean-Luc Picard we've ever had before. And I don't remember anyone ever talking about his parents at all before this.
Yeah. Frank, what are your recollections? Did we even think he had parents?
I mean, I always just remember it was just, his brother, his brother's wife, and his uncle, his nephew, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Just those. So I never really knew much about his parents, but also I was fine. It wasn't a question I ever needed answered, because I never even knew to even ask the question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Flobo's like my point exactly.
This is the Hobbs and Shaw of Star Trek right now. I'm telling you.
This is the Hobbs and Shaw of Star Trek. Yeah. But so, Flobo, were you at all intrigued in the backstory of Jean-Luc, or you were just like, yeah, let's get to some space fighting?
I mean, what's wrong with space fighting, y'all? That's how
nothing.
you saw the space conflicts.
Absolutely.
No,
I love the nice space conflict.
Look, I understand characters get backstory and development and all that stuff, but I just feel like this season plus going into Picard, things are fun if you're into the nostalgia of TNG. Those I've talked to who love the show remember getting up or staying up, depending on whatever, and watching Jean-Luc going, I wonder what he had for breakfast with his Earl Grey tea. I wonder how his parents treat him. But as a character I've become familiar with recently, these are all points that aren't necessary. They don't really influence or change anything. It's kind of like, why is Picard on Picard? And going into season 2, I was like, you got to give me a good reason to justify why I'm going to watch this. Then I got some Crystal Barrio stuff. I got some Girardi stuff. Fine. But I go, don't give me this backstory. I don't want to know about Darth Vader's backstory. I don't want to know about Picard's backstory. Just give me the stuff they're doing now.
I mean, Darth Vader's backstory is literally the cause for the prequels.
No,
is that what you're trying to say?
I don't want scene by scene.
Yeah, well, you want to? Did you see the first Star Wars and think like, yeah, but what was he like as a little boy? You know, I mean, isn't that what we all
racing?
I don't know. For me, it was like the movie Generations, where they go into the Nexus, and we get to see what both Picard and Kirk's kind of fantasy would be. And so, if when it reveals that Picard's just like some Dickensian Christmas kind of gathering, and then Kirk is just in a cabin riding horses and making food, like those are just like two things. It's like, this just does not kind of vibe with whatever I knew, what you've shown me on every other episode or film of these characters. And so the same thing with this Picard backstory with his mom. I'm like, all right, I doubt I'm going to like where this is going, and I didn't even really want to see it. Just tell me something more interesting.
Yeah, I like the idea of continuing adventures. Sorry, were you saying something, Nikki?
I was going to say I actually really liked the backstory, the Jean-Luc backstory with the mom. I felt like this is information about Captain Picard that I want to know. Like, I want to know what his childhood was like, what his life was like, how he became the man he became. To me, it was. I was there
go ahead.
for
Go ahead. No, yeah. I mean, look, the fact that he is closed off emotionally, and look, if a fine-looking Romulan who's half your age, inexplicably with an Irish accent, is trying to get all up in your Picard, what are you gonna do? Like, I'm gonna go look for my old book. You know, like I just need books, and you have to figure at some point, Jean-Luc has enjoyed the company of others. I mean, we should clearly assume that he hasn't, from the little bits that we know, we assume that he enjoys ladies, but if they want to stretch that into anything else, that's certainly the door is open to that. There's clearly something with him and Dr. Crusher from some point that was never really explored. But whatever it is, I think it is an interesting character trait. I just don't know if it's interesting enough to build the whole season around it, which I think it'll just be a part of the bigger story. But I know I can understand Flobo's point, because it's like the way the character, I mean, you have to think about the fact that not quite 35 years, but we've had Jean-Luc in our life for 35 years. And for a lot of those years, he actually wasn't, on the screen. So getting some stuff like, yeah, okay, I'm interested in it. But what I'm most drawn to in the show is not that sort of backstory. Less drawn to finding out more about Raffi's son. But what I would say is that Raffi did not annoy me in this episode because she was in it so little, and she spoke with respect. She spoke with respect to the Admiral. She used his rank.
Stop! I don't understand this.
No,
I'm going to fire from the show.
What I liked about these characters, though, is that I enjoyed seeing this version of them much more than I enjoyed seeing the versions that we saw of them in season 1. I didn't need to see Raffi post Starfleet, down on her luck, kind of trying to get her life together. Give me this Raffi, who's in Starfleet, who's got her stuff put together. Is not perfect. She's struggling with 7 or 9, trying to figure out what her life is going to be like. Can they have a relationship? So there are things there, so that she's got to kind of pursue and work with and struggle. But it's much more interesting this version than what we got in season 1.
No, I do agree.
I agree.
Go ahead, Nikki.
I was just gonna say I was glad that Raffi wasn't irritating in this episode. Her edges was laid. She looked like she had got her shit together. I was there for it.
That's important.
But but similarly, I thought that I liked, look, I think that putting somebody in uniform goes a long way, because I thought Rios was a lot more grounded as the captain of the Stargazer, but blonde murder doctor lady was way more annoying than I remembered, and I was just like, oh, I mean, how hard would it be for her to stumble out an airlock? Because like the decision to make her drunk, I was just like, you got to play to your strengths. And Nikki and I talk a lot about on Discovery when
About
Michael
drinking.
needs to laugh and like be laughing hysterically. It seems like a lot of heavy lifting. And I think that when she's, analyzing the wave file, which is interesting enough in its own right, that it's felt like a very familiar plot point, this audio file that needed to be separated, and I guess because we're going to do something very familiar and travel back in time, maybe that's why. So maybe the time warp dropped in script elements from Star Trek for The Voyage Home, but we shall see.
Sorry, I'm typing this right now. Hashtag leave Rafi alone in the chat. You're saying.
Yeah.
Leave
Look,
Rafi alone.
Flobo,
Look, can I say that I actually did not like Rafi in this episode? Is that possible?
you
can
can
do it.
say it.
Does that do it?
But
So
I feel like that's just Flobo the contrarian. Just
no,
wanted to
but
say
that's,
that.
I didn't want to be. Now hear me out. Last season, there's a lot of flack with the informal nature of Rafi, but
Sure.
to me, that was my on board to knowing more about Picard, the guy, because watching TNG in reverse, it was like, oh, this is a cool captain, totally different than Kirk. He goes belay that order a lot more. I totally get it. And so when people didn't like Rafi, I was kind of thrown for a loop. But now, we'll probably get to it, all that emotional gravitas have shifted back to Guinan, which is another homework assignment for someone like myself. Now I have to go back and watch the Guinan episodes because they clumsily explain why she's young or old or whatever, and the LO rings and stuff like that. So I feel Rafi is being basically cut away. It reminds me of Discovery, where they took all the adorkable from Tilly and put it on Adira. And you're like, but why? I like the way it is. Stop changing stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of questions about that, about why they made those choices for Discovery. But that, as they say, is for another show, or another 2 shows, including Commander's Log, which can be found on Flobo's YouTube channel. I don't know what day and time. I think Thursday, I assume.
Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, see, there you go. Always be closing and always be generating new content. Well, you brought it up, and I did want to talk about, I always feel like for Star Trek, and I'll start with you on this, Frank, it's always important to acknowledge the obvious. If you don't say it, it would drive us crazy. If Q doesn't show up still young and goes like, oh, you're old, let me fix that. And if Guinan doesn't say like, yeah, obviously I don't age, but I did this to make people happier. It's like, yeah, the obvious is like, yes, these actors got older. What do you want us to do? Do you want it to be Robert De Niro and The Irishman, or can we just let them get older? And I think Star Trek, more than anything else, is like, you always have to explain these things, and did you appreciate that little nod to like, yes, we know what you're thinking, but here's our quick like 2-second explanation, and you're just gonna have to deal with it.
For me, I liked it for Q, because it was just a cool little bit, and it was a genuine surprise for me. For Guinan, I felt unnecessary.
Absolutely.
I was totally fine if they had not even addressed it and they had just gone through that scene and did their thing. I had bigger issues with that scene than dealing with the passage of time for the actors that portray that character.
Well, let's get to that in a second, but I wanted to go to you, Nikki. I mean, look, Whoopi Goldberg does still look like Whoopi Goldberg from 30 years ago. I mean, you look at that face and you go like, oh, is that Whoopi Goldberg? No, it's her as soon as you see her.
And we never knew enough about Whoopi Goldberg's people, about Guinan's people, to know how they aged or didn't age anyway. So they didn't have to.
They did
mention it at all.
establish in Generations, and then also in the episode with Mark, the 2-part episode with Mark Twain, that she looked the same in different points in history. So she did always look the same. And because they filmed them around the same time, that was the reason there. So I guess that's why they felt like they needed to explain it. It's like, true. Oh, okay. So she doesn't age in these 400 years. Why does she age now in this, 30-year span? But I agree that it would be less necessary for Guinan, But for Q, if he showed up and he was already old, they would still have to address it. But I thought that I agree with Frank. I didn't expect to see it. Well, a De Niro-fied, de-aged version of him, and I thought that was actually a fun little gag to get. But just to circle back, because you brought it up, Frank. So you had problems with the scene between Jean-Luc and Guinan, and I would like to hear. And then I can't wait to hear about Flobo's grievances. But
Yes.
Frank, you can air yours first.
I see Flobo's already got arms crossed. He's like, I'm gonna tear your opinion to pieces, Frank.
I'm not a contrarian.
By the way, Dominicus Saxon agrees. Explaining Q made sense. Guinan, no. And thank you, Troy. Time's Arrow was the episode. At my age, it's lucky that I could remember that Mark Twain was in that episode. At least I had some shred of. I would be a terrible witness to a crime because I'd be like, I don't know what happened. Were you looking down? Nope. Are you hiding something? Nope. Just don't.
You're such a dad. I wasn't paying attention.
I was definitely not paying attention. I was making sure my kid didn't hurt himself. Anyway, Frank. So the scene with Guinan.
My biggest issue is, at least from everything that we've seen, not that we've seen tons of the Picard-Guinan relationship, but we've certainly seen enough and been told about it enough that how close the two of them are. That has been exemplified and told to many people throughout the course of Next Generation. So to have this conversation where it's, oh, there's something about you I don't know. Oh, I don't know. It just felt like it was just coming off of Picard's, little childhood remembrances of his mom, and then like, oh yeah, why can't you love? Why won't you tell me, Jean-Luc?
Yeah, you'd think it would have occurred to her at some point before. Sure, I can see that.
That the way that they had said that Guinan like the two of them know each other in a way that nobody else does. Like they really drill deep in. So you think, to these two characters, they're kind of an open book to each other about everything.
Yeah. What did you think specifically about that interaction, Nikki? For me, it is sort of more of like, oh, I'm so glad, Whoopi Goldberg wasn't in season 1. Glad she's here. Glad they're talking, and of course she has a bar, somewhere in Los Angeles. So that means that we can all go look
on
for
Forward
it.
Street. It's on Forward Street or Avenue or something.
Yeah. So we just have to find it and we can all hang out.
You have to get tickets for it, though. Fortunately,
it's like the scum and villainy cantina.
The most LA thing ever.
You got to go to Eventbrite and schedule in advance, and then you do need to get the QR code for your Vax card as well. But anyway, all that plan making aside, Nikki.
I have to agree with Frank. I felt it was a little. It was a little like, come on, you got to be kidding me. After all these years, they've never had this personal conversation. She's never said to him, dude, why are you always alone? She's never it just seems a little, I was incredulous that it was the first time that she ever asked him these questions. So I think that what I did was convince myself that it wasn't the first time that she had asked those questions, and this may not be true of what happened, but how I remember it is she was pestering him to trying to get from him this information she's been trying to get for decades.
Yeah, I mean, look, to never have a conversation that doesn't start off where they're sitting there on the Enterprise 10 forward. Maybe it's, everybody else has gone to bed. And she's like, so you ever hit Beverly, or like, did that ever happen? I mean, come on, you must have at some point. You must have gotten with that. Tell me, Jean-Luc, I'm your friend. And if you haven't, time's a wasting, I believe Wesley's father was dead, and there was always the never explored idea that Picard might have been his father, but I think that was like a season 1, which was, let's be honest, kind of a different show than every other season. But I don't know. So again, Flobo, this is a character that you're not familiar with, but I assume you must have you seen all the movies, and it's all right. You're not going to have any points deducted if you haven't.
No, I have 0. I don't know how many points you could deduct. It's like Jeopardy, minus points.
Sure.
No, I've seen the first 2 movies. I saw it for a video with Frank a couple weeks back, and I saw enough episodes of TNG to know that Elronians have more of an emphatic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Besides my Rafi gripe of now it looks like Guinan's going to be the emotional center of Picard, and my other gripe of here's a guy I saw flying against the stars, and now this guy is selling wine and striking out with women. My problem with this scene, it was almost like everything was just not as tight as it could be. I felt like it took 6 lines to explain the age change. It took 2 minutes to explain why Picard is failing on the emotional level. To me, structurally, it was fine. It was a little bloated.
And Flobo in the chat, instead of he's having a side conversation. Picard makes wine, drinks hooch, details at 11, and Craig points out, give JL all the hooch. I did appreciate that he's just like, this is a hooch conversation,
JL.
Well, yeah, I know the JL.
Do not use JL.
I think Craig might be using it because he knows you don't like it.
Craig knows how I feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I think that there's a lot of moving pieces for where this goes throughout the season. I'm interested in where it goes, but let's talk about sort of this new version of the Borg that show up, which go ahead.
1 second, just before we wrap up on Guinan, I think everybody was genuinely excited when they found out, oh my gosh, Whoopi Goldberg's going to come back as Guinan on Picard. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And who knows how much she's going to show up through the course of the season. I don't know. We didn't get any sense from the trailer. I hope it's more. But if this is all we really kind of got for it,
yeah,
it's just like, why did we have this conversation that really went nowhere with them? Like, if this is the only thing, or even if you're going to have her come back at the end of the season.
I would assume that it being her having a bar in Los Angeles is set up because when they're in 2024, she will also have had a bar in Los Angeles, and he will go see her, and then they'll then have to explain how she looks old before she got old. Or look, I don't even know that part. I wouldn't expect that they only had her in this episode because there's time travel. I would be shocked if we didn't get her again. But it could be a squandered opportunity, but
I just think it's like, give us more meat to this conversation. I don't need like just Picard, like, I'm not going to say anything. Yeah. And her being like, well, why don't you say something? Like, that was a wasted scene.
Yeah. Well, wow. It's definitely not on the level of something you referenced earlier, and I mention all the time on our various Star Trek shows, not wasted to the extent of we finally have Kirk and Picard together. Let's have them make breakfast. It's not as bad as that, but I do agree that it is a little bit of a missed opportunity. So, Nikki, if we learn one thing from this episode, and there's many things that we can go over that we learned from this episode, one of these things I think is, if 7 of 9 tells you to kill somebody, you should kill them. Let's just trust that gut. I think
as the longest standing former Borg, her opinion on all things Borg should be respected from the get-go. Yeah. And yeah, that was unfortunate.
that was unfortunate. There was unnecessary blue blood spilled, and I don't mean the show with Tom Selleck. I mean that talking about the crew members. It was out of my mouth. I knew what I was going to say. It wasn't planned, but made me laugh. Made you guys laugh. Everybody wins.
Deep cut, man.
Yeah, but the show is still on, by the way, like season 9. But anyway, Flobo, obviously you have enough familiarity with the Borg, I'm going to assume, that you should know that when they say they come in peace, it does usually mean that their definition of peace is like, you're just going, it's very peaceful to be assimilated.
Oh yeah,
in their viewpoint.
Not
it's very peaceful. Yeah.
Well, it's not only have I have enough, thankfully, Borg episodes. I'm actually rewatching Scorpion this weekend, so it's pretty cool to see 7 of 9 debut in the Star Trek universe. Now, going into this episode, I was rolling my eyes because from the outside in, it looked like the Borg was this giant button. And the franchise was, oh, we need some stakes. Borg, Borg, Borg. However, I think this time having 7 of 9 project her prejudice, or be on the receiving end of prejudice, having the Borg Queen show up out of nowhere, having the premise of peace. I know I'm jumping around. I was like, it was legitimately a fresh take, which is so ironic because after season 1 of the Borg cube that did nothing, I was kind of like, so I'm on board, man. And yes, I will kill anyone 7 of 9 tells me to. That's just what I'm going to do.
All right, including if it's any of the three of us. And honestly, I would respect it. If 7 of 9 felt like we needed shooting, I think she would be right. Troy has a great point, though. I think when the captain of the ship tells you to stop firing, you should stop firing, whether it's a captain or an admiral. And Dominica Saxon says the training and discipline should be better. A lot of them looked young and jittery. Yeah, that's true. The crew of the Stargazer is very reminiscent from the media reports of the Russian army. You know, the crew of the Stargazer ran out of food. They didn't have any gas, and they asked to borrow a phone so they could call their mom. So I agree with that assessment. I don't know how Rios got such a sweet ship. Notice we didn't see an Enterprise there. What would we be up to? Like the Enterprise H? I don't even know how many incarnations there have been. Did they talk about an Enterprise in season 1? And I've blocked it from my memory. But I don't think so. I don't think we've heard about the latest on the Enterprise. You would assume that there would always be one in service, as whatever the latest one is. But we saw a lot of ships, but none of them look like the Enterprise. So yeah, I mean the thought on the Borg, and to Flobo's point, the Borg, when they were introduced, actually it was a Q episode, and it was this idea of you weren't supposed to encounter a threat like this for centuries, but Q was like, well, let me help you along, as a good pal as he is. And I think once they had this next level, they went to that well very often. But I think as critical as I am of the Voyager series as a whole, I did always find 7 of 9 to be a fascinating character. Just the idea of someone who, was recovering from the Borg cube, and not in the way that Jean-Luc was, where he basically had like a lost weekend with Van Halen, and then all of a sudden he's like, wait, I did what? I killed Commander Sisko's wife. Oh boy, that was rough. I really don't. I wish I remembered that. Yeah. What do you think, Frank, about this? Probably isn't even Borg 2.0. Maybe this is the Windows 97 of Borg.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the hook for what the season is who was this female figure that was on the bridge of the Stargazer? Because I don't think it's necessarily the Queen. Because it feels like we know what the Queen, the Borg Queen, looks like. We see her in the tease for the season. So I feel like the big mystery is it somehow related to Picard's mom. So
yeah,
but it's like, I have to admit, I'm not that interested. So
no.
It's like,
wow,
let's just get to it, guys.
And Troy says, I thought Worf was the captain of the Enterprise. That would be great. I'm sure that if Michael Dorn got that call, he wouldn't be like, nah, I'm all tapped out on Borg. On Worf. I don't need to be him anymore. So that would be amazing. Have him if Worf jumps to the rescue like Riker in season 1. Which up until that point, all we had gotten out of Riker was like, do you enjoy my pizza oven? We're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's nice. But let's put on those those aren't dress blues or dress reds. So yeah, I think I think that boy, they're always very quick to go to that self-destruct sequence in this franchise. It is far from the first time. Like basically, I think Star Trek 3 was the first time we saw a self-destruct sequence, and I think it took a good 4 minutes for them to go through it. But
I love how Picard's password was like 000 Picard 0.
Because he didn't, it's like a joke. It's the joke from Spaceballs. That's the code on my luggage. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that Picard isn't going to remember, but I think he has initiated a self-destruct sequence before, and I do believe that might have been a password before, because I remember thinking, I'm like, yeah, that is a lot of zeros. It's it's weird. It's like, oh, my cell phone number is 6. What? What are you doing? But
and the truck jargon you want is like, I remember even to this day, Janeway saying one command code was like Janeway Pi Delta 4, and even that just that was different and unusual. And it's even stuck with me to this day. So to have 0, 0, 0 destruct, Zero.
Now we know the password if we want to self-destruct Frank's house.
Yes. No.
Yeah, Frank, you just said Pi Delta 4, so now the house is recognizing it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it'll I think that sort of getting this moment where of course we're going to come back from it at some point when all the time traveling and everything gets all sorted out. And I think that they're just about to wrap production on season 3. So I think that Jean-Luc is not going to explode at some point towards the end of this season. So yeah, I think that there'll be a lot of tinkering with the timeline still to come. Was there anybody that we got from season 1 that we could have used more with? I did have my little joke up top, but I felt good with the amount of Robot Girl we got. And I don't know how much, if they figure out a way to include her in the story, that's fine. But I also, it's going to be okay if that was it for her, what do you think, Frank?
It was great to see Rios as the captain, which is great,
Yeah.
but I felt like it almost went to the well too many times with the stogie. I'm gonna light it. I'm gonna light it. I'm gonna light it. I just got the lighter in my hand now. Am I gonna light it? I don't know. So that was a little bit of business I don't know if I needed.
Yeah,
always kind of the rascal.
You would assume in the 24th century you can't smoke on a starship, considering you in 2022 you can't smoke in a McDonald's. I would assume that you probably can. Yeah. What did you think, Nikki, in terms of the amount of time we got with the characters? I think it was good to not ignore everyone. I mean, they came up with a good reason. How we saw little bits of everyone, but I think it was kind of the right amount, including Raffi. Sorry, Flobo. I think it was the right amount that we got for everyone.
I agree. I feel like they caught us up on everybody, which was nice. And we got a little glimpse of where everybody is now, what they're working on now. And I thought it was the appropriate amount for the first episode of the season. I actually thought we got maybe a little too much of Murder Doctor Lady. She was on screen a little more than I needed her to be, and but otherwise, I thought it was good.
They did explain how she beat her murder rap, which I think was very important. There was definitely a lot of exposition in this episode to kind of tidy up some stuff from season 1. And, we talked about it last week on the Discovery After show, Nikki, that, that was one of several things that were just like everybody so quickly were like, yeah, you killed somebody, but how are you doing? It was right. They were very quick to just ask how it affected her. So at least they're like, yeah, too much, way too much of her. And again, I don't know why she needed to be drunk. It did not help. I don't think it helped the storytelling.
It did not
That's
help
for our benefit.
Yeah, that's fair. What were you saying, Nikki?
So we would have something to critique. It was so we would have something to critique, Flobo. Was that it?
No, it was kind of like if I had all my exposition out of nowhere, it'd be kind of weird. But if I'm drunk and trying to turn away a guy, it's like, here's all the exposition thrown at this audience surrogate. So I was fine with it.
Yeah, although to be fair, I think that the way that they did give us her character, I wouldn't have been surprised if she just blurts out. She's like, oh, I think that this is an old Earth colloquialism that might be called TMI. Is that right?
Right.
Some really,
Very TOS.
really terrible writing that I just came up with.
That's
right
like
there.
classic.
No,
Spy.
you know what? It's not actually too far off because last week on Discovery, someone made a reference to Gilligan's Island. So.
Oh, the 3-hour tour. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, it sounds like
you missed that. You missed that episode. No, that did. Yeah, Frank, see what you're missing?
Yeah, no, I mean,
you had David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg is fantastic on the show, but he did reference a 3-hour tour, and he's like, it's an old Earth turn of phrase. We're like, what?
Yeah.
Watch that Sherwood Schwartz survived into the 32nd century.
Classics never die.
I mean, it's Shakespeare and Sherwood Schwartz. That was it.
True. Over the panel of time, you can't tell the difference, to be honest with you. No, okay. So to answer your question, I think Chris Ball for me jumped the most. For someone I was kind of on the fence with. I forgot about the whole hologram doctor thing, but
Yeah.
Seeing him count and do captain stuff. I think Lieutenant Singh is going to be my new favorite character. She was like, Captain, you let this lady all up in my console? That was pretty fun.
I did like her, yeah.
I forgot about Elnor. I was like, oh yeah, storyline, right? I guess. But he showed up. That was fine.
Gave him a book from Spock. That was nice.
Sure, Elnor.
Yeah. And I like the idea that absolute candor will get your ass kicked. I believe it was your pal Rafi pointed that out. That but to be fair, he could if anybody could back it up, I believe it would be him. All right, and you know what, Craig? If Craig likes it, it must be okay. Seeing her stumble across the bridge was good fun, though. If you think so, I'm gonna allow you. I'm gonna allow you to have that opinion. I may or may not respectfully disagree.
I will say though that one thing I did overall enjoy, speaking of the bridge, was just the look, the advances in technology. I'm always the sucker for updated starship designs, updated bridge designs, and just going forward in the universe where certainly at the end it didn't really pay much, wasn't a very good idea to maybe use Borg technology and kind of incorporate it into Federation technology. But the idea,
you think?
But the idea is like, oh yeah, we think we've beaten these guys. It kind of makes sense. Why not to adapt some of that stuff to kind of see how the Federation has progressed technologically speaking? It's always interesting. So I dug that stuff.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean that in the early seasons, especially the first season of Discovery, when we were doing the after show over at AfterBuzz, that was the one drum that Frank and I hit repeatedly. Was like, can we just tell stories past Star Trek Nemesis, just at some point, because that was the end line, and they were like, yeah, but let's go back, let's go way back, not too far back, just a little back, So at least we are getting that. With both of these seasons of Picard, just seeing how things went, and then in Discovery we're getting like way too far ahead. So there's a lot of
which one is it, Christian?
Well, yeah, look, they gave me what I asked for, and I was like, no, that's not quite what I asked for.
It's like a monkey paw.
It's like
not what I meant.
It's like if Dorothy went to the Three Bears house and she sat down and she's like, oh, this bowl is too cold. This one is too hot. So then they put down a bowl that's like 6,000 degrees and she gets third-degree burns on the roof of her mouth. And she's like, well, obviously I didn't want that. That's kind of what Discovery gave.
Why is Dorothy with Three Bears? Where's Goldilocks?
Yeah, I don't know why I called her Dorothy. That's all right. Look, in my reality, before she went back to Kansas, Dorothy went from Oz to the Three Bears house.
The Three Bears house.
Yeah. Look, this is the kind of fanfic that I write in my spare time.
Fair.
Write what you look. You write your Raffi origin story, Flobo. I have a Three Bears multiverse where they interact with a lot of. I have a story where they hang out with Alice in Wonderland. Anyway, back to the point at hand. Before we wind things down, we'll reference what we saw in the trailer for the season, because it touches upon. I don't think it gave away too much. It does tell us things. I think that I don't know, correct me if any of you didn't, but Nikki and I were talking that we definitely knew that they were going to go back in time, and it works sometimes. And City on the Edge of Forever, it's great. Star Trek 4 Voyage Home, second reference to that in this episode. I think it works, but it doesn't. I mean, in First Contact it works as well. There's there's instances where time travel works. I don't know that I need them to go to like 2024. Which I'm like, what are they trying to do? Wait, what happens in the next 2 years? That's like worse than what's happened now. Right. It's like, oh no, there's a super duper pandemic. The one you had before has nothing. Wait till you see. Everybody's gonna be living in bubbles. It's crazy. We're all gonna be John Travolta, and that's not an old reference. But what do you think from what we've seen, Flobo? Because out of all of us, you're the one with a foot and a half out the door because you don't have the affinity for these characters like we do. If there's not more Raffi in episode 2, I think Flobo's tapping out, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I want more Battlefield Earth references. Is that what? Before I know your name, it's fine, but it always trips me out because I guess Starfleet is based in San Francisco, and so when we go back to the West Coast, I go that's very specific. And I guess it maybe I'm just like, highfalutin that way. I go, what could possibly be in 2024? Let me see what the past is or the future is. I don't want to see the present necessarily in Los Angeles because I don't know, that sounds kind of normal, right? I've seen the stars. I've been to Talos 4, baby. Don't show me around the corner from my house, but maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe Los Angeles is a faraway land to most of the fans here of the franchise.
I mean, maybe the Brown Derby reopened. We don't know.
Hopefully
Musso's and Frank's didn't close. I mean, look, there's a lot of restaurants to check up on in 2024. Is Lowry still serving people food in the parking lot, or can you sit inside? Now we don't know. We're gonna have to find out. These are all things we need to know. So yeah, but are you intrigued enough by what you've seen? Or I mean, because we don't just have the glimpse that they go to 2024. We referenced the Borg Queen, some of the other stuff. Do you feel like they did a good job teasing you for the rest of the season?
In the short way, yes. I think there's enough action scenes, enough fighting scenes. Again, I felt on board 7 story. If this was Star Trek 7 of 9, I'll be on board completely. But again, a lot of these new series is really punishing newer fans like myself. So I go, okay, now I have to go back and know why is Q such a jerk? I've only seen 1 or 2 Q episodes. Or
wait till you see the hat he wore in the first in the premiere. Oh my God, that hat!
What it was?
Yeah,
No.
You have to go back and watch the first episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay. Yeah, the trial.
Encounter at Farpoint. Yeah.
So I feel like in short, I'm on board, but it's going to be like reading Shakespeare, where I have Shakespeare in one hand and the Spark Notes in the next. I think I'm going to have to study Picard. I won't be able to enjoy it as most people do. You know what I mean? Not having the references.
What about you, Nikki? In terms of what we're seeing is coming ahead in the rest of the season.
The coming attractions actually made me excited. I was a little like, okay, yeah, I'm here for this. I'm here for Q and Borg and it looking like people are getting shot and I'm here for it. I want all of it. And I'm excited. I think they did a lot to perk my interest. I'm concerned about going back to 2024. I'm a little concerned because time travel doesn't always go well in Star Trek, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
Well, Frank, there's an element of it's like the greatest hits reunion tour. It's like we didn't make a new album, but if you want Borg, you want time travel, you want Q, this is your place. And we definitely need to see some cast members we didn't see. And I feel like this might as well have been a reference that Frank or I made. Going to be some Cagney and Lacey action with Seven and Raffi, which is such a very specific thought because that's not quite where I saw it. But if you want them to be buddy cops, I will. If that's the show, I will watch that show. If Picard ends after season 3, and then it's like Seven and Raffi as Space Rangers, cool. All right,
trench coats and miniguns.
Yeah. But what about you, Frank? This is the new Star Trek content that you're actually watching is this show, and when you see this preview of what's to come, do you have similar concerns? Are you letting yourself be excited, or are you like, I might just have to binge 4 of these in a row and see how it goes?
I'm on the countdown to whenever somebody says double dumbass on you. So
so more the colorful metaphors.
That's right. I have a feeling that is honestly the thing that get me most excited.
Wow, by the way, sorry, Dominicus Saxon talking about the exact same scene as you, just phrasing it differently. Yes. I can't wait until Picard meets a punk rocker on a city bus.
I feel like having Q back. I know you're not a huge fan of him, Christian, but for me, I was jazzed. Like, all right, this is this is cool. I feel like there's still a lot of stuff you could do with the relationship, but I have a feeling the show is going to disappoint me, and John Delancey's not going to be in here nearly as much as I would like.
I will tell you what I read in an interview with him is that he's in 6 of the 10 episodes, and I feel I feel like yeah, not enough. That's true. And then the other 4 are all Raffi episodes, Frank. So, but yeah, and look, I think that in the period of time between 1987 and 1994, there was a stretch where I was like, oh, I don't know about Q. I just don't know that he belongs in Star Trek. There's been a long time since then. There's been a long time with no new Star Trek. There's been a lot of time with no Jean-Luc, none of these characters. And we had season 1 of Picard. And as I joked at the top of the show, Q would have gone a long way to helping that first season. I don't know how he fits into that story. That's not the point. If it had been about him. So I've always liked John Delancey's portrayal of Q. I would hope we only get one Q. I don't want to check in on Corbin Burnson or anyone else in the Q continuum. No. Yeah, I'm good. No, I mean, unless it's an LA Law reboot. But other than that, I don't think that I actually need it. But I am excited to see where it goes, because they at least planted the seed that in the series finale, he told him that the trial would continue. And at any point in most of the last 30 years, if any of us ever thought about that, if we came across the All Good Things series finale of Star Trek: The Next Generation, we would be like, the trial never ends, except it did. So the fact that it is going to continue, I think, is exciting. And yeah, I think that there is some homework for somebody like Flobo, I think, if he wants to appreciate it. But I think that I am excited to see where it goes with him. And for me, 6 out of 10 episodes is exactly where I want my Q. I think the quick mathematics means that that's 3/4 of the episodes. Yeah. That's right. I went to college.
That's right. I'm good with that. Let's hope he's used well. Fingers crossed.
So I think it was a good way to tease the season, in that Picard wakes up, things are definitely not correct, and he has the reaction to seeing Q that I probably would have if this was 1996. I would have been like, oh God, no, not you. But now there's an affinity for it. What about you, Nikki? When Q shows up and he snaps himself older, he calls him Mon Capitan. I mean, what did you need anything else from this episode?
I needed nothing else. I was quite satisfied. I always loved Q, and so I'm super excited and can't wait to see what John Delancey does with it this time around.
Yeah, the same interview that I read, he said when he met with the showrunner, his first question was, he said that I'm intrigued. You're not going to put me in tights again, are you? So I'm not quite sure where I read that interview, but if you Google it, you can find it. And okay, this is a separate question before we wrap up entirely. Frank, are you going to watch Strange New Worlds?
I am going to check it out, because Pike was definitely my favorite thing about that second season of Discovery. An unexpected surprise that I got from that season.
Agreed. Yeah, I am glad that they decided to do more with that, and they're probably really glad that they held off on showing us the inside of the Enterprise on that season of Discovery, because now they were able to save something for the series. I would hope that Paramount Plus would allow the season of Picard to end before Strange New World starts. Having this premiere before Discovery was over makes absolutely no sense to me. It's like, if nothing else, learn from Disney Plus and space out your shows so that people don't want to cancel their subscription. When your shows overlap, that's that many less weeks that people need to actually stay subscribed to the thing. Yeah. So I don't think Star Trek. Sorry, what was that, Frank?
They are overlapping by at least 1 week, if not 2.
It's 3 episodes. Yeah, and if it was like, if the finale of Discovery was the same week as the premiere of Picard, I'm like, yeah, that could work. That could help. But yeah, and I don't know why they would have Star Trek competing against Star Trek on the same day. Put one of them on Tuesday or something, you know? So I hope that we get back to some kind of semblance once, semblance of having things be separate. I'm excited for the show and, just being with Jean-Luc and, every time that we see Patrick Stewart walking and talking as Jean-Luc, it is fairly apparent that, that the third season being the last one is probably a good approach to take. And I just hope that we're so satisfied at the end of, I assume what is going to be these 30 episodes, that we're like, yes, I'm glad that they brought it back. I'm glad that we got more stories with him. I'm satisfied with where it ends. You can have your complaints about individual seasons or episodes. We don't, we don't want it to be the Murphy Brown reboot. We don't want to be like, what the hell was that for? It was like, I think it was on the air for like 3 weeks.
I have a question though.
It is said.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I just thought about the Murphy Brown reboot today earlier. So that's disturbing.
It's a very deep cut. As you guys are lifers, does it seem like there's too much Star Trek content, or is it because you lived through the lean times, you're just taking it all and it's all great? I want to know how you guys are feeling this.
I don't want to speak for everyone, but I might speak for everyone when I say when you have the lean times, which includes, by the way, when you would get a movie every 2 or 3 years before you had Next Generation. So like before 1987. And, even, and really after the first movie, after Star Trek, the motion picture, it wasn't like, oh yeah, they are definitely making more, that could have been it, and that's why I think Star Trek 2 had to be the home run that it was. What do you think, Nikki? Do you think that there is too much Star Trek content, the right amount, or too little?
There could never be too much Star Trek content. And I'm saying that as someone who is not watching Star Trek Prodigy. So as far as I'm concerned, there can always be more. I just may not watch all of it. So, I want my Star Trek to feel like Star Trek, not Star Wars. And so I think for me, it'll depend on what the Star Trek is. If it's real good, gives me the good vibes of like good old fashioned Trekkiness, then I'm there for it. But if it's too different, I don't think I can invest.
What do you think, Frank? Do you think it's like Highlander? There can be only one.
I have to admit, I have to agree with what Nikki was saying. Is that I feel like having multiple series is great as long as they're each addressing a need, scratching an itch in the Star Trek universe. And yeah, as Nikki was saying, as long as I don't need them all to be on a starship going through and exploring strange new worlds and civilizations, but every series at least fit consistent with what the tone and tenor of Star Trek is.
Yeah, no, I think that we're in agreement that, and yeah, I mean, you referenced Prodigy, which I've watched one episode of. I still haven't seen any of Lower Decks, so there's plenty of Star Trek out there that I could continue to consume. But I mean, that stretch after Enterprise ended, and honestly, Enterprise ended for me, I think, like season 2, because I know they did more, but I did not keep watching it. And anybody go and watch that series finale of Enterprise. I told you to watch it. Have you watched it? I didn't tell you. I asked you to. Nikki, if you watch it, you'll see why people talk about it the way they do.
All right. I will watch it eventually.
You'll see a familiar face, and then you'll go, but why? So, there's that.
It's peak UPN. That's it.
Yeah, it's peak UPN. It's Patrick Duffy steps out of the shower at the end of the season of Dallas, and you go like, wait, didn't he die last year? There's all these other references that are for people that are even older than me. But
I mean, for real, I was a kid. Like Patrick, the Step by Step guy.
Yeah,
it's like before that.
No, the Patrick Duffy leg on season 1 of South Park. Yeah, well, let's finish up with this question. Troy says, could we see a Stargazer series after Picard ends? And Craig says that'd be a step too far. I think that the Discovery quality is starting to thin out. Ooh, that's a. I wish Craig was wrong. I really do. I feel like Frank, you got at it the best time. I think last season was also good on Discovery, but this is one that if you were ever to binge it, you would not experience it in the excruciating paint drying detail. Snails crawl, I believe I said before we started, way that we have. Yeah.
I agree, but a little differently. I thought the first seasons were great. That shot of the Enterprise showing up at the end of season 1 was fantastic. Season 3, I hated completely. Season 4, I liked.
It's because you hate cats.
Absolutely. I'm allergic to cats.
You got a grudge against Grudge.
Yeah, absolutely. She makes me itch. No, but the fourth one had a cool mystery, but to get there has been ridiculous. It should be 10 episodes. It should be 9 or 10 episodes, but it just seems to be pulled out a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. And Dominica Saxon, Picard is the only spin-off series of Star Trek I've ever watched. But I mean, does that mean of this wave, or have you never watched Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise? I think it's interesting if this is the only one that you watch. I would assume if you're watching Picard, it's because you watched Next Generation at some point. In any case, it's fun to have the gang back together on the screen, but then also to have the 4 of us together, at least for this week. Frank and Flobo, you are welcome to be on our show as often or as little as you would like. So there is no pressure, but you are welcome to always be on with us as we talk about it, especially if either of you hate the series. If either of you hate the series, it then becomes mandatory that you talk about it.
You see the thing in the chat right there? Don't shake your head at me.
Let's see.
No,
none of them, and don't shake your head at me.
I was... I thought you meant the Kurtzman. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
So and then Flobo, we referenced it earlier. If people want to keep up on new content every day, how do they do that?
NewAmsterdam.com, KNAWAmsterdam.com, and every Thursday I somehow navigate Discovery because I still like the show apparently. Over at YouTube, youtube.com/Flobo Boyce. Commander's Log is the name of the show. Every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. Craig's always in the chat. We're having a good time.
Oh, all right.
New Amsterdam. Is that the NBC medical show that you're promoting?
No, or the Fox show with starring Jamie Lannister. They took it from me. Flips table.
And Nikki, apart from where people can find you and I talking about Star Trek Discovery, which we will be doubling up episodes 11 and 12. Nikki has not seen episode 11 yet. And every time I reference it, she becomes less and less excited about watching it. So we are going to double up 11 and 12. And then we're going to take Discovery season 4 out back like old Yeller and put it down for episode 13 in 2 weeks. So you can look for us doing that show and this show Thursdays and Fridays. But follow me on social media at Christian DMZ, and I will always post the links. But if you subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube page, you'll always get the shows. I know that they've moved around the schedules a lot, but it's hard to keep up sometimes with some of these shows. But Nikki, how do people keep in touch with you?
They can find me at NikkiBaileyComedy.com or at NikkiBailey_. And
Frank, you don't want to be found, do you?
No, clearly, I didn't put any sort of kind of way to trace me on the social medias.
Can I mention Happy Go Jackie, or should I
always mention
that's
it.
And I've seen both Frank and Flobo sometimes together, sometimes separately. You both do shows with our friend John Lott Jr. on his media empire, and Frank, you've done some interesting shows. And my takeaway was, wow, Frank's watching General Hospital, but not Star Trek Discovery.
I know. 7 years straight, I've been doing that General Hospital after show.
So are Luke and Laura still around, or am I maybe a little out of touch?
Laura's still around. Luke supposedly killed off, but we all know what that means in soap opera.
Peter August sucks.
Yeah, there's an evil twin just around the corner.
That's right.
Usually what that means.
That's right. Flobo got into GH recently, though.
Did you?
I watched it for the first time ever, and that Peter August guy, awful. Am I right? Jeez.
Oh my God. My grandparents loved, let's be honest, mostly my grandmother loved General Hospital so much that they, I think in New York, I think it was on at 4:00, whatever it was, they had to either leave our house by 3:00 to be home so they could watch it.
It was on
Or
at 3.
or they were staying for dinner. It was one or the other. You know what I mean? It was like, well, if they're going to still be here close to when it starts, they're staying and they're having dinner because they missed 2 weeks in my grandmother's entire life. They went to Denmark for 2 weeks, and that's the only time she ever missed it in her. I think she passed away at like 95. So there's a lot of I've had that show on in the house I lived in, but I can't say that I watch much. But I love that you guys keep up on it, and you guys did some Star Trek content with John. I think you referenced that you guys did some Star Trek movies, right? So
we did talk to that with Flobo.
Saw 1 and 2.
Yeah,
there we go. He yeah, that's right. He enjoyed Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Christian.
I did not. I thought it was a slow motion picture. It was all. It took forever.
It was a stop motion.
It does take about 30 minutes to see the ship, doesn't it?
It's like,
but
oh my gosh.
But the ship is beautiful. And we'll wrap up in a minute. But Frank, I think you and I have talked about this before. Does it not help Star Trek: The Motion Picture if you watch the director's cut with 12 more minutes, which seems like it wouldn't help, but story-wise, things just made more sense. And the extra running time, look, it's still shorter than the Batman by a good like 25 minutes.
That's
and
true.
I mean a good 25 minutes. But
agreed. I agreed, Christian. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe one day Flobo will watch Star Trek 3 and see if they ever found Spock, but odds are probably pretty good that they did.
Yeah, so after the second one, Spock is totally dead. Totally dead. Never comes back.
Yep. Well, anyway, thank you all for talking Picard, and thank you to everyone in the chat, especially because as Flobo pointed out, Craig, it is like 5 a.m. or something. That's bless you, Craig, for
thanks for watching, Craig.
You would be our number one patron, except we don't hit anybody up for money. This is all free. In any case, that's all the time we have for this week. We will be back next week to talk about both this show, and at least some of us will be back to talk about Star Trek Discovery. But until then, live long and prosper.